What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Fourth and 15 with Mel and Smooth. I am Mel. They're going solo today, but shout out to Smooth anyway and know he's working hard behind the scenes. First off, know we got to do this all the time. Our first sponsor of the show is brought to you in part by Uncle Rico's Quarter Mile Challenge. Throw them all over the mountains. If they'd have put him in, they would have won state. Just letting y'all know that right now. Secondly, I'd like to thank you guys for watching us on KZ Productions, our Facebook channel, our YouTube channel. If you're watching us on Facebook, send us some stars, man. We could use them. We know y'all like the content. Just hit us up with some stars. If you're watching us on YouTube, you see the dollar sign. Let us know. Buy a super sticker or buy a little highlight your comment. Let us know you're watching. We can shout you out. Now, this man who is a guest on our show today, has fought in the Kumite and lived to tell about it. I don't know how many times I got to say that. The Bloodsport thing, man. First it was Chong Lee, now it's Alex Cardo. But I like to introduce Master Ron Hall. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for allowing me to be on your show, and thank you to your audience.
Uh, Y'all heard the man. He said thank y'all. So go ahead, hit them chats, hit them highlights, and show us your appreciation. So, Master Hall, let's get right into it. Take us
Sure.
through the early years, life growing up. How'd you get into martial arts?
I'm a native of Washington, D.C. Everybody in Washington, D.C. loves martial arts. You know, they love either karate movies or taking martial arts. When I was a kid, I happened to see Bruce Lee on television, and that just fascinated me to no end. And eventually, I started going to martial art movies, and I saw a double feature with Fist of Fury and Lady Kung Fu at the. For those of you in Washington, D.C., you might remember the Senator Theater. We went to see that movie, and it just blew my mind. And I was going to a school that was very problematic because it was full of bullies, and they all were focused on me. And we had a recreational center right across the street from the school that they started teaching people karate. And all of my teachers got so tired of me fighting all the time. They were like, Ron Hall, you need to go take some karate. So me, my brother, all of my best friends, probably was like a group of us. We all went to take karate. We took a Mudaquan karate from a guy named William Phillips in Washington, D.C. I think the organization name was Dhaka Dojang, if I remember accurately. And I was horrible taking karate, Mudaquan. I had no coordination, no rhythm, no balance, no strength. And all of my other friends excelled far beyond the level that I was at. Actually, I always stayed a white belt until I think maybe I got like a blue belt, but yeah. All my other friends, they were like brown belts and blue belts and on their way to black belts, and I was still stuck in the white belt range. But something happened between watching martial art movies and taking martial arts. It just all of a sudden, by practicing it over and over, it just started to click, like the fundamentals, the basics of just, understanding your stances, understanding your punches, understanding your kicks. It all kind of started to make sense to me maybe about 3 or 4 years in. And those were the early beginnings of my martial art training.
All right. Now, because we're going to come back to kicks because it's a very special kick in mind that I got to ask about. I think you know which one I'm talking about, but we're going to come back to that. Now,
Okay.
Mudaquan Karate,
Mhm.
and you at the time were not getting along, but you got it
Right.
together. How did it coordinate going into your teenage years and, you know, just you getting out of high school?
Okay. Well, after Mudaquan, I actually took Wushu. I took Wushu from a guy named Willie Lynn and Dennis Brown is a world-renowned Wushu stylist out of Washington, D.C. I took Wushu from them. And that was a little bit frustrating to me because it wasn't like the Kung Fu that I saw in the movies. I mean, one of my very first lessons, I can remember just going to class and they would tell you to get in a Mabu stance and you stayed there for about an hour until you just collapsed. And we would practice. We didn't even practice any punches. It was just all stances. Mabu, kung bu, shibu. That's all we did was practice stances. And that got me frustrated because I wanted to begin doing this. I already had a karate background and I wanted to start doing stuff like I saw in the movies. That's why I took Kung Fu, but none of that was happening. But it was really an asset to me in my fighting. Actually, I think the balance of taking Muay Kwan, which is a hard traditional karate uh, st- type of martial art that comes from Korea, it actually was the progenitor of Tang Sudo and Taekwondo. Both come from Muay Kwan. They both
I
come
just
from
learned
Muay
something
Kwan.
new. As a
Yeah,
Taekwondo practitioner, I just learned something new.
and yeah, they come from Muay Kwan. And Wushu allowed me to be flexible, allowed me to flow, the rhythm and the pacing. So when you look at my fighting, you can point out elements of those martial arts when you look and analyze like what I'm doing. So between those two martial arts, they really gave me a good, strong foundation. I was strong. I had two assets. I was strong and I was mobile. So that made me formidable. Anytime I was like sparring somebody, I would always be kind of like formidable because I just wasn't somebody who was could move around. I had power behind my techniques. So, and just I continued to develop that over the years, meeting different martial artists, exchanging styles. I'd go meet a guy who took Hung Gar, go meet a guy who took Wing Chun, and we'd work out and practice, and you're trying to figure out what's what and trying to learn what you can. So I did that probably all the way through the Army. I went to the Army when I was 18, and I
Hmm.
practiced all my Army buddies. If they, some of them probably are watching, they used to always tease me about practicing karate and say, "Man, you should go be in a kung fu movie or something." So that's kind of like how my development was until like my early 20s.
All right. The the army, speaking as a child of army or product of army parents. Hi, mom. Um, I do have to ask, what was that like when when the army knew you had a combative background? Was it easy for them to teach you anything outside of what you already knew, or did they struggle because you were pretty much ahead of most of your fellow soldiers?
Yeah, the second one is right. What happened was I was very agile and physical. So almost anything that we did in the army physical, I excelled at. Obstacle courses, running, fighting, I excelled at it all. So a matter of fact, I was so good at it that they used to play. My army unit had a football team, and I wasn't into football at all. But I could outrun everybody, and then if you tried to tackle me, you couldn't get me down. So they would have me play football with them and give me the ball and just have me run. And I would either outrun people or once they got to me, I'm still up. So that was a thing, an asset in the army until a bunch of guys on one team decided one day the whole goal was to like break me up, and that's what they did.
Oh man, see that ain't
Oh, it's
that's
all
y'all
good.
just rude. If your fellow army people are watching, y'all are rude for that. All right, I'm gonna because this is like I said as we spoke earlier. This was dear to me because 1999, I moved into a new section of Cleveland, and obviously my mom, we get cable. She loves movies. I see you on Bloodsport 2. I didn't even know it was Bloodsport 2 after the first one, but I see you, and I remember you telling Master Barnhart, aka Alex Cardo, if we meet, I'm not holding back. And that was what drew me into watching this movie. How did you get into film? What was the catalyst for that? And then we end up seeing you on Bloodsport 2.
Okay. I would say from my teenage years, it was always a fantasy to be in a martial art movie. I would play, me and my buddies would play martial art movie fighting, and play like we're the Shaw Brothers or play like we're Jackie Chan. I mean, did that probably till I was like 18 years old. So I always had it in my mind. And when I went in the army, people kept telling me they thought I was so good I should go to the movies. So I still had it on my mind. I got out of the army, and for a couple of years, I was working in corporate America. I was running restaurants and working. I used to. It was so funny. I used to run what was the equivalent of the TSA at Washington Airport, and that always cracks me up how lax the security was as opposed to today. But
Yeah.
Yeah, but I at that point in my life, I was looking to. I, I had no connection to movies. However, what the first connection that I had was Chuck Jeffries was a martial artist in my city, and he was doing a TV show called Pick Up the Beat. And on this show, Chuck would occasionally do these little short snippets where he would do martial arts. Actually, it was him and Eric King. Eric King is an actor. You might have seen him on what's the HBO series with the serial killer Dexter. Eric
Ah,
King was the black detective on Dexter. So him and Chuck Jeffries
oh,
had
he
this
looked
TV show. It was
familiar.
called Huh?
I said I thought he looked familiar.
Yeah, yeah. They had this TV show called, it was a local access TV show. It was called Pick Up the Beat. And every once in a while, Chuck Jeffries would do these little shorts. And Chuck Jeffries went to the same high school that I went to. However, he was out when I was in, but people would always, when they would talk to me, they would compare me and Chuck, say, man, well, this is a guy named does Kung Fu like you, was named Chuck Jeffries. Little did we know that we took Kung Fu from the same guy. We didn't even know that. So what ended
Right.
up happening was George Chung, who's a Taekwondo stylist, and Chuck Jeffries, they had done a couple of movies together, and they had a seminar in Washington, D.C., like how to get into movies. So, of course, I'm going to go down to the seminar, and it was over the weekend, and they really taught us some very useful tips to help me pursue my acting career once I came to California.
Nice.
So
That
that was kind
is
of like the first, yeah.
yeah, that's awesome because not a lot of the people we've interviewed before, they don't really say seminars help them get in. They usually say that the martial arts talent or they had did a little spot in a commercial or something before. So to hear that you went through a seminar and pretty much went through the channels is awesome. Like not a lot of actors really tell that story.
For some reason I can't hear you. You ought
I said
to
not a lot of
always seem to
actors
be
really
breaking
tell
up.
that story. But
Excuse me?
oh, give me 1 second.
Okay, no problem. Well, hello, folks. This is the Ron Hall Show. We will discuss martial arts. Okay.
Yeah, I
All right.
apologize for that, folks. My mic was messing
No
up.
problem.
But yeah, to hear you went through the proper channels in a seminar on how to get into movies. A lot of actors really don't tell that side of it because they usually like to say their talent or they had a spot and they knew some people, and you pretty much went in unknown. So that's to me that's amazing.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Now
Yeah, it was,
I do have to ask this question. I
sure.
see you in Bloodsport because this I've always wanted to know the backflip kick. Was that part
Hmm.
of the fight scene or was that just you improvising? I have to know. That was my favorite move out of that whole movie.
Well, I must tell you that that's probably the thing I'm asked most about from people in my career is that backflip. That backflip is just something that people ask. I guess the origins of that backflip was I used to have this poster of Bruce Lee doing the backflip and Into the Dragon in my room for years. It was just in there for years in my room, and I would look at it and kind of so the backflip was one of the things I learned in high school. I used to take gymnastics in high school. So I learned how to do, like backhand spring and a couple of other basic gymnastics moves. But the backflip was something that I learned and mastered in high school. So
Right.
when I started doing movies, I started incorporating flips into doing it. And Philip Tan, when I met Philip Tan, when he saw me do a backflip, he's like, "Ron, we got to use that in a movie." And I was like, "Well, how do you want to use it?" He's like, "I want you to kick a guy doing a backflip." And I wasn't digging it. I just thought the way he wanted to do it, I just thought it was going to be kooky. But we did about 20 takes of that. I would say to get it accurately right, we did about 20 takes. And Philip Tan was right. It worked. And people ask me about it all the time, and people, will say to me that they think it's the best backflip in cinema. And I would kind of agree.
I would too because
Yeah.
in most martial arts movies, especially the ones made by Shaw Brothers, wushu is a main component. For those watching, Wushu is a big component of old Shaw Brothers movies. You can tell by the movements. There were some actual kung fu styles thrown in, but for the most part, Wushu was a big component. You see a backflip kick in a Shaw Brothers movie, but it didn't have the same flair as when I saw yours in Bloodsport 2 because it was so fluid. Not only was it fluid, like it looked like it could really kill somebody, and if not kill him, you won't want to fight this dude again. So
You know what's funny is that same comment. I worked on martial law with a lot of stuntmen working in there, like J.J. Perry, Koichi Sakamoto. We worked with Sammo Hung, and just a lot of people worked on there. And that exact quote you said to me is what Simon Reese said to me. He said, "Ron, you're like the only guy I know that does kung fu that you look like you could kill people." You know, so
because and again, this is just me as a martial artist and as a fan. When you watch certain types of movies, the fight scenes either are practical or you can tell they've worked on it. And that's not a knock on anybody. But the best fight scenes, in my opinion, are the ones where you see the movement is so fluid that you don't know if they even practiced this or worked on it. It just looks that good. And to me, seeing you fight in Bloodsport 2, that showed there are some people that can pull this off, and you don't know if they actually worked on it or they just went in and just said, "Come on, let's do it." So,
well, I think that's the difference. I think there's a significant difference between having real martial artists do martial arts and then people you teach to do martial arts. And the example I like to give is it'd be the equivalent of Fred Astaire and John Travolta dancing. Like they both are great dancers. However, when you look at John Travolta dance, you go, "Oh, that's cool. John Travolta can dance." When you look at Fred Astaire, you go, "Wow, what the hell is that?" You know, like where is that coming from? You know, when you look at Michael Jackson, it's like,
yeah,
wow, this is amazing. So I think that's the advantage that real authentic martial art practitioners have as opposed to somebody you teach choreography is that their creative point starts at the point where they own the movement. They own it. They know it inside and out. When you're teaching somebody choreography, they are mimicking what you're teaching them. They might not even understand it. They might not understand the dynamic of it. They might not know how to put their hand here, but they might not know how to pull it back. So a person who knows martial arts has an advantage in terms of the creativity that can come from the starting point of just the martial artist being able to command his martial art.
and that's something we've heard before from your fellow colleagues, such as Hakeem Alston, Bam, Willie Johnson. Shout out to those guys.
Oh yeah,
I just think that this was that movie. Even though people consider it a B movie, that was the movie that made me realize you can actually pull stuff like that off, and it looked really good. And as you mentioned, you've done other movies, so I'd like to ask, what is working in Hollywood like for you?
Okay. Well, I'm not going to say. I would say I'm Hollywood adjacent, meaning what's the biggest movie I think I've ever worked on would be what? Let me think. What's the biggest? Probably Van Damme's movie The Quest. I was a stuntman in it. That's a Hollywood mainstream movie. Most of the movies that I worked for were like smaller independent companies who work within the boundaries of Hollywood, but they had their own money, their own independent financing, and they usually made straight to DVD movies. You know, so that was very, like most of the movies I did, they never had premieres. Like I've never had a movie where I went to a premiere for one, Bloodsport 2 was the only movie that I went to where we actually had a premiere. But most of the movies, I did them, went and shot them, and then I'm in a video store, like for Triple Impact. One day I'm in a video store and I hear this voice and I'm going, man, that sounds familiar. And it was me on the screen in the video store in Triple Impact. You know, it was the first time because I did the movie like maybe 2 years earlier. And, you know, I ran into it in a video store. So most of the movies I did, you know, I never saw them in a movie theater. I just saw them with an audience. You know, Bloodsport 2 was the only one I saw with an audience.
I mean, to me, the fact that you're in Hollywood and you're essentially living a dream that most people don't get to is awesome. Like I if you would have told me 3 years ago I'd be talking to people I've watched on TV, I've watched in movies, I would have told you were crazy. But here I am talking to Master Ron Hall about the backflip kick and his career, and it works. So
For
I
sure. Well, that happens to actors too. It's like, I've met Donnie Yen, Jet Li, Sammo Hung. I worked on martial law, and Sammo Hung hit me in the face so hard I wanted to kill him. Like, he hit me in the face hard like about 5 times. I'm telling you, it was very hard. It wasn't a weak punch. I met, meeting Jackie Chan was a thrill of my life. Meeting Frankie Chan, meeting, guys out of the Shaw Brothers. So yeah, I understand that thrill because I still get that thrill today when I meet somebody who I love in a martial art movie. So I totally understand.
being that you brought that up, I have to ask, what is your favorite out of all the movies you've done, from Triple Impact to Bloodsport to the Quest being a stunt performer, what was your favorite movie? What was
Sure.
out of your
That's easy
list?
for me. Yeah, Triple Impact is my favorite movie. I just like, well, I like Indiana Jones, kind of like, treasure hunting, adventurer. So that was right. So it had that element. I like the buddy element with me and Dale Cook. I think me and Dale Cook had a good chemistry where we probably could have did like 10 movies together. And Bridget, she was absolutely fantastic. I wasn't prepared for how good she actually was. She was absolutely fantastic. And then, it was just a very fun ride. I mean, the movie looks, shooting it was as fun as the movie looks. And when I look at all my movies, it's the one movie that I like everything about it. I like the characters, like the action, like the story, like the flow of it, the feeling, the vibe. So Triple Impact is my favorite movie.
Okay.
That I'm doing.
Now, your favorite moment of your favorite movie would be what?
And you know what? I don't think about that too often because I'm so busy trying to think about what I'm going to do next. Like my challenge is that, I'm not a young guy anymore, but, I can still do acrobatics. But my challenge is what can I do to surprise and, to surprise people? Because when I was younger, that was kind of like my stone. It was kind of like, let me see what I can do to surprise you that I'm going to do something and you're not going to expect it.
Mm-hmm.
That it's something that's out of the ordinary. And because I'm not Chinese, I've had a lot of compliments I've met a lot of Chinese people who always compliment my martial arts. There was an actor I tried to work with named Chen Quan Tai, and he would always
I
like
know
compliment.
who that is.
Yeah, Chen Quan Tai. Yeah, he called me in the middle of the night one time wanting to make a movie and just was complimenting me on what he thought of my martial arts. And so I have always taken the approach that if you know martial arts, I want you to look at what I'm doing and go, I may know martial arts, but I don't know if I can do that.
Go close the door.
So that's always been my approach to martial arts in film, to make it explosive, to make it dynamic, to make it surprising, to make it fun, to give it a narrative, so that when you watch it, you're kind of taken on a ride because here's the reality. Most people practice some type of martial art. Oh, I think I lost you for a second. That's okay. I'm sure you're going to
No,
come back.
no, it's okay.
Okay.
My
Okay.
son,
No problem.
for
Yeah.
those that were
So
watching, my son just walked through the door.
Mhm.
So next time I'll have him say hi.
Yeah. Okay. So, most people practice some type of martial art. So to impress them, you really have to be able to do something dynamic. You just can't, there are kids outside that are flipping on the cement and they're doing things I never even could imagine, just out on the cement. So in order to impress them, you have to understand what you're doing and to be able to quote unquote compose movement that is entertaining, that's exciting, that's creative, that has some imagination in it, all using the fundamental of whatever martial art you know or have command of.
And I completely understand that, which is why like movies, watching martial arts movies interested me so much because it was always a wonder of is something in that movie really possible? Could you really pull that off in a real fight? And after watching the backflip kick, I realized it was definitely, as you can see, my daughter. He went downstairs, honey. But as you can see, for those at home, that was my daughter, Munchie. Munchie is her own woman. But yeah, as watching Bloodsport 2, seeing the backflip kick, I knew anything was possible. So I'm all for, watching movies where what you think is not practical really is practical.
Well, I'll put it like this. Here's the reality of martial art movies. It's all, make believe. I mean, I'll give you an example. Bruce Lee, as wonderful and amazing and as fantastic, skilled of a martial artist that he was, there's no way he's going to walk into a room and beat up 40 guys who all know martial arts. No way. However, he demonstrated so much skill, so much mastery that you, the viewer, will allow that this is possible. It's possible that a guy that good could probably beat up those guys. In reality, they just pile on you and, the fight would be over. Right. So martial art, so how well you perform your martial art is directly proportional to how people accept what you're doing and the quote unquote reality of it. And I'll give you another example. For years, people would criticize martial art movies and go, that's fake that people block 15 times and 20 times, all of it, 20 different moves. Nobody's going to do that in real life. Now we're in a point where people are fighting they have on suits and they're gunfighting next to each other with bulletproof suits on, and quote unquote people take that under the guise of being quote unquote realistic or some type of realism. No, it's all make believe. It's all make believe. It just depends. Like in the Eastern culture, their approach is more about technique, about the internal, pressure points, specific moves. And in the Western culture, we like the end result. We want to see the impact, the hurt, the crunch. That's why Steven Seagal came along and resonated so powerfully, because Steven Seagal gave you impact. When he hit somebody, it wasn't just popping somebody in the head and the guy fly back. He's going to throw him on the ground, smash him, the table's going to break, the glass is going to fall off, and the guy's going to hit the ground, you're going to hear the thud, and then Steven Seagal might come back and stamp him in the head. All of that stuff is stuff from American culture that we grow up and that we can clearly identify with that. So that's the difference between kind of like how the Western culture and Eastern culture view their martial art movies. But in the last like 10, 15 years or so, it's kind of blended together. I mean, you see all around the world, there's distinct factions of like martial art action, coming from India, coming from Vietnam, coming from Korea, coming from Japan, where people do almost the same thing, but in an individually, culturally filtered type of way. So that's where we are now, is that the martial art action today actually has kind of like maybe most of it is kind of like westernized. That all the cultural elements that you would see somebody doing like Choi Foot, you see the cultural Chinese elements in that fighting style. You won't see that if two guys are fighting in a John Wick movie. They're going to be roundhouse kick, basic front kick, and throwing each other and basic punches. So those are the difference in those approaches.
Very understandable with my daughter's deciding to work out now. But so you're still in martial arts. What is your favorite, or what has been your favorite moment of being an accomplished martial artist?
Here's my favorite moment. I know exactly what it is because it was a mind-blowing moment to me. I had when I first tried to get into acting, I tried to meet Jackie Chan. I used to send him videotapes all the time. I would send him videotapes, and one day I got home and there was a huge tube in my mailbox, and I opened it up and read it. It was like Tehran from Jackie Chan, best wishes. And then he wrote me a letter that I still have, and he said, "Hey Ron, I'm no longer," he said, "your martial arts are great." He said, "I'm no longer a director, I'm just an actor, but if you come to Hong Kong, give me a call." So now I start doing movies. I go to Hong Kong and I give Jackie Chan a call. So I go to Jackie Chan, Mike Leader. He takes me to Jackie Chan's office. I meet Jackie Chan, meet his father. I think he was making Police Story 3, maybe, or maybe Police Crime Story. That's the movie you make, was Crime Story. I think with Kirk Wong or something. And so what happened was we were talking about working together. So then, I went back. I never heard, I would keep in contact with Willie occasionally. And I think I saw Jackie one other time. So we had never worked together. Or he came here and he was making the movie Rush Hour. He was making the movie Rush Hour. And on Rush Hour, some of the top stuntmen in the world were working on that movie. So what happened was I caught Jackie alone. He was by the craft services table. And I said, "Hey, Jackie." He said, "Hey, Ron, how you doing?" I was like, "Fine." I said, "Jackie, I said, you're in America now. When are we going to work together?" He was like, "Oh, we'll see. And then he said, "You got a tape?" And back then we had VHS tapes. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Go get your tape." So I went and got it. I grabbed it to him. And when he got it, he kind of rolled his eyes a little bit and kind of gave it to his secretary, and she dropped it in his bag. So I'm thinking, oh, man, he's going to blow me off. So the next day I came back up to the set, and I was talking to some of the top stuntmen in the world. Rick Avery was there. I think Terry Leonard was there, James Liu, Al Godo, some of the top Asian stuntmen in the world, were there. We were all in a circle. And all of a sudden, Jackie Chan's stunt team started to walk past me, and they were going, "Hey, man, your Kung Fu is real good, man. We saw your tape. Yeah, Jackie, we was watching your tape." And so I was getting excited. Even the guy from Drunken Master, too. He came up, he said, "Man, your kicks," he gave me the thumbs up, like, "Your kicks are great." So then Jackie was in the trailer, and he came out. I guess he heard the commotion. He came out, and he saw me. Now, mind you, we were in the convention center in Los Angeles, kind of massive, and they had hundreds of extras. And Jackie Chan screamed all the way across the room. He was like, "Ron Hall!" And he ran all the way through the people. He was drinking a Coca-Cola. He ran up to me. He said, "Ron, I've seen thousands of people all over the world. You're one of the best I ever seen. You got talent. You're very original." He said, "We're going to work together." That's never happened, but it's never too late. I always aspire to work with Jackie Chan, because as much as Bruce Lee influenced me in martial arts, I think Jackie has influenced me in cinematic action.
And I can respect and appreciate that, because you don't hear too many stories where people point you out, famous people point you out in the middle of a crowd. So that is awesome.
That was, I cried and called my mom. I was like, "Mom, Jackie Chan told me he thought I was one of the best he ever seen." I was just, that just blew my mind.
That's worth it. That's worth a call. That's worth a cry. That's worth a call to mom. That's worth it all.
And, and I love Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan to me is just, Jackie Chan has reinvented cinema action. Where Bruce Lee played the foundation for the action we've used today, Jackie Chan really came along and refined it. He found that sweet spot between doing what is done in the Eastern culture and applying a Western sensibility to it, in terms of just physical movements, using objects, using your environments, using boxing-like techniques, as opposed to, specific style martial art types. So Jackie Chan really is the most prevalent martial arts style in cinema that we see today.
Hey, he really is. Like, even all of the older stuff that they brought over to make it, I guess you could say, a newer movie, like Rumble in the Bronx, Mr. Nice Guy. Those movies they still hold up. They still hold up.
Rumble in the Bronx, I tell you, that fight scene in that warehouse, while that's not Jackie Chan's best fighting scene to me, it is the best representation of everything Jackie does well, that one fight scene. And if you ever seen the Hong Kong version, it's a little step up, because Frankie Chan, who's another martial art film actor, but he's also a music composer, he did the music for the Asian release of Rumble in the Bronx. And that music is the equivalent, in that fight scene, that music is the equivalent to the Raiders of the Lost Ark music on the truck chase scene. Like, that's how pivotal it is, that it drives that action, gives you that, pulsating drive that when Jackie's doing his motion, it just,
because I'm not an Indiana Jones fan. I do think my favorite movie would be Temple of Doom, if it's any.
That's mine. Hey, Temple of Doom, man. I call it Temple of Doom. Raiders of the Lost Ark 1.5. Like that last 40, I don't care what you say about the goofiness in the front. That last 45 minutes of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is relentless. And I would challenge anybody to show me an action movie that exciting at the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, because I was gonna say at the beginning of it stinks to me, but at the end, that's where it just brings it together.
Man, that bridge sequence, oh man, please. I tell you what, that's just I watch that sequence a couple of times a year. I just sit down and watch that whole sequence. Just yeah, I could go on about Indiana Jones. That's its own. Me and you have to come back here and just talk Temple of Doom.
Yeah, we will. Lastly, what is life like for you currently? What are you up to now that the fans of martial arts and fans of your movies would like to know before you
Okay.
hit the road?
Well, sure. Well, what has happened is, I did a movie called Shadow Fist with director Robert Samuels and Robert Jefferson. They've made a series of short films, and they invited me to be in the third one. And that was an opportunity to answer the question that I'm sure most people were asked is like, you've been around a long time. Can this guy still do that type of stuff? Well, anybody who's seen the movie probably has no doubt or probably is surprised that not only I can do it, but at the level that I can still do it. I always say, had I known I would be this physically adept later, I would have chilled out when I was younger a little bit more. Because when I got about 40, there was a little anxiety coming in like, oh man, this is my window's almost over. I'm not going to be able to do, what I'm going to be able to do. But, I can still, like for example, I can still flip, I can still split. Now I can't do 20 flips like I used to, but I can still do a backflip, right outside, just stand it. I used to have a moving business, and a lot of my clients would recognize me from the movies, and they would go, well, you still can't do that stuff. And I would just do a backflip right there for them.
Wow.
So just, and that actually taught me about just handling age with life. And one influence, I listen to a lot of jazz music, and I love jazz music. And one day, maybe it could have been like 10 years ago, I went to see some jazz musicians I've been listening to since I was 25. And I saw them like 30 years later, and they sounded more powerful, more intense, just with all the skill that they had when I saw them when I was 25. And I was like, you know what? There's something in that. There's something in continuing to develop whatever skill that you have, even as you get older. And like I said, I'm not a young guy anymore, but I'm still capable of doing anything you've ever seen me do in a movie. I could do it to that level today. So that really was an enlightening experience because I thought it would be over. And one thing I've questioned it to myself is, for example, even though I can still do splits, I can't do like I used to be able to flip into a split. I can't do that anymore. I don't even want to try to do that anymore. I leave that to the other guys, these younger guys. The physicality of young people today is so amazing. I am wondering, are they going to be able to do that stuff when they get like 60? There are guys like, I don't know if you know the guys, the Martial Club guys. They're all amazing. All of them are incredible, phenomenal martial arts in their own individual way. Each of them is like a force to be reckoned with martial arts. And they can do mind-boggling things right in front of your eyes. I've worked with all three of them, and they're just incredible. And I'm going, man, will they be able to do that in the 50s? Probably, maybe. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. And like I said, for my own journey, it was interesting to learn that I would still be able to do those things.
Yeah, the fact that you said you could still split, and here I am in my late 30s, still trying to get my stretching right. So shows I got work to do.
Yeah, I've said to myself, like I made a promise to myself that Van Damme owns splits. He owns it. I will never do a split in a movie unless it's something move related in fighting. Meaning, like I said, like in one movie I did a backflip into a split as the guy kicked over my head. So, it's kind of like that way of using the split as opposed to, because Van Damme owns the splits, and everybody who's doing the split now, they got that from Van Damme. Van Damme took that move and just made it, it's his own. So,
yeah. All right. We know we know you're busy. We spoke earlier. You got a convention coming up. Tell the folks where they can find you if they got questions or just want to follow you and follow where you're going on social media?
Sure. I'm a very easy find. I'm on social media. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Just look for Ron Hall, Kung Fu Bro, and you will find me about that evening.
Thank you very much for that, sir. And we do appreciate you. I appreciate you because now I got the secret to the backflip kick. Now I can actually go and practice that because I think I can pull that off.
I think you can pull it off too.
But thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I greatly appreciate it. It's just, you don't know how much this means. For those that watch, he is on Facebook. That was how I found him. You'd be surprised the people you can find on Facebook. I'll tell you that. You'd be surprised.
Oh, absolutely. I just made a decent friendship with a musician that I've been buying his records for 35 years.
See,
he wants me to teach him he wants me to teach him martial arts, and he'll teach me some music.
There you go.
I mean, it is. Oh yeah.
So for everyone watching and everyone that is gonna watch this later on, you will be surprised who you can find on social media. If you're in the business of podcasting, if you just want to interview them, take the risk, take the shot. The worst you can hear is no. But Master Ron was nice enough to come on the show and get an interview in. Thank you so much again. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank your audience. I really appreciate you inviting me on your show, and I look forward to doing it again where we can deep dive my movie Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
You are welcome back anytime for that one. So,
man, you just went up 10 points for me, man, because people give Temple of Doom. I look at on YouTube, man. People are like, "Oh, Temple of Doom is the worst Indiana Jones movie." Man, you got to be out your mind. Indiana Jones is.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is the worst one, if you're gonna ask me to be honest.
Oh my God! Well, I think the last one is the worst one. But you know what? I'll just say this before I go. I want to hold you up a little bit. Here's what I think the difference is that when you came out of Raiders of the Lost Ark, you said, "Oh man, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, man, they made an incredible movie." When you came out of Indiana Jones, you were like, when you came out of Temple of Doom, you were like, "Man, Indiana Jones is a bad mother. Shut your mouth."
Exactly. People don't get that. People don't.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We gonna touch that one on another show. But thank
you.
Right, sir. Thank you again for being on with us. You're welcome back anytime. For those watching, like us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube. We are on Instagram. We are on Twitter. You can watch the Straw Brothers Sports Show. You can watch the Ruler's Minute with Rico McGee, the Jay Rich Show, Outside Interference. We're all on the 216 Sports Network. And so is Master Ron Hall, now that you know. So for those watching, Master Ron Hall, I'm Mel. We will see you guys later.
Thank you very much.
Happy day,